Hey, it's Brent. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Brent. We've had 10 guests, 11 episodes. I got something special for you this time. I pulled out some of my favorite clips from the previous 10 shows. Enjoy. If you had to take maybe 2 or 3 things from our interactions, our experience, our conversations that you would say, hey, these are going to be foundations for my family, what would those couple of things be? Whether it's just your family in general or your relationship with your son or your daughter?
Honesty. A lot of people don't know this, but I don't know the exact age. But my parents did not allow us to believe in Santa and the Easter Bunny and all of that. But I feel like people look at it as raising children forever instead of raising children into adults. So with that certain aspect of, allowing us to have our quote unquote fun, then it's like, all right, like y'all old enough, it's allowed me to grasp life easier compared to holding on to these things, and then as I get older, everything I know is a lie, per se. So honesty, we have an open door policy in this household, kind of like, how businesses are, we can talk to each other about anything. And we have fun. I feel like people forget that being a parent to your child you can have fun as a parent with your child.
Right.
It's a lot of growing and honing and molding and, trying to make sure you are leading your child down the right path, but a part of that is fun and, just enjoyment, because you want your kids to trust you. So through that, as a parent, you have to be open to your child. Like I said, y'all didn't raise us just as children. Y'all raised us as in children going on to be to an adult, right, or growing to be into adults. So that's definitely fared well. So I just appreciate y'all. As we get older, it's still hard because we still are y'all children, but as far as adults, we get that notoriety and that respect from y'all. As we raised 2 good kids who became good people, who are good adults, who take care of their business, who enjoy themselves, who still, it's just y'all didn't raise us as like children all the time. So I appreciate that.
Well, you and Kayla made it easy. Y'all were good kids. So let me ask you this. Some people are appalled or shocked when I tell them that I told you and Kayla everything I did, my past, all the not so good things. How do you feel like that impacted you? Did it help? Did it hurt? Neutral?
Yeah. Parents, and I'm not a parent, so I'm only speaking from what I see in my perspective, but I know some parents who try to quote unquote hide that, their youth. But it's like, as a parent, you're supposed to guide and you're supposed to, if you made mistakes, how else can your child avoid the same mistakes, or even, be more educated than you were at that age if you don't share your experiences with them? Right. And it just goes into the thing like, you always taught us, no matter who we are human. Like, we all have a past, we all have things that we're not proud of, we all have things that we wish we could have handled differently, or man, I wish I knew this at an earlier age. So it's just, I guess it's fared well as far as like, parenting and teaching.
And parents, the reason I asked that of my son is because sometimes we put these unrealistic expectations on our kids to be perfect, and we act like we never done anything. And one thing I tried to do, if nothing else, was be honest with Kendall and Kayla to let them know things I did. I'm not proud of everything I did. No, I'm not telling you everything I did. They know, but still, I think we have to be real with our kids because it fosters a good sense of communication. Do you feel like that kind of open door policy where we're honest with you all, we try not to overreact? Maybe if you told us something where we probably should have been like, boy, you did what? You said what? Do you think that helped you to have that better communication with us?
I asked you a question.
Yes, sir.
When I'm talking to you and I'm, talking to the family or whatever, do you think the stuff I'm telling you happened and it's true? As far as like, when I say, oh, this is the rundown, this is what happened, or, just like you said, if you ask me how something is, you expect me to tell you the truth.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. It's weird because it's like I'm open, which means y'all are open, which means that we get to the root of the problem, or if whatever the situation is. It's just being open and honest allows me to be myself. You know, it's not stifling. Like I don't have to wear this mask or, you know, have this certain persona around, you know, the family. Like I am who I am. Y'all are who y'all are. So it just makes things smooth. It's hard to explain, but it's just I definitely wanna. There's things I take from how you've been a father to me that I will take from my kids, and then some things that it's not even about that I do or don't agree with. It's just who I am as a person that I look at things differently. But I don't know, man. Just we cool, we easy going. Just that honesty and that being transparent, being open is definitely something that I feel like a lot of people don't have.
One last question. You said, you know, we're cool with your your friends, they're cool with us. What is maybe a conversation you've had with some of your friends, all of your friends about us as parents? How do they feel about like how open you can be with us? Or
My friends don't like it. I won't say they don't like it, but it shocks them. They're like, you know, yeah, I was talking to my dad and I told him, you know, X, Y, and Z. And you hear it like, you said, well, you told your parents what? Yeah, bro, like, those my folks. Like, at the end of the day, I'd rather tell them the truth to avoid something happening and not be covering it up. Like, and I mean, like I said, being honest, it allows people to work with you where you are instead of trying to mask. Because I mean, at the end of the day, I just want to be the best person I can be. Right. And I would be doing myself a disservice by lying to the people close to me or not being open to the people close to me for maybe giving me that foundation and giving me that safe space to talk and grow. So I would do myself dirty if I didn't take advantage.
between me and you, we always share good books. What's a book you're reading now?
Well, right now, actually, right now, I went back to the Bible right now because of the pandemic time that we're in. I'll give an example of that. In Galatians chapter 6, Paul is talking to the Galatians during his time period, and he's trying to get them to walk out the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians 5, and he tells them that, and there's some difficult times going on. He tells them to take care of one another, to carry one another's burdens during this time, to lift them up. You know, that God will not be mocked, or whatever you sow, you're going to reap it. And so he begins to do that. And then he comes down to a scripture in Galatians 6:9, and he tells them, I don't want you to be weary in doing what's well. Don't be upset about doing the right thing. Well doing. Sometimes people attack us for doing the right thing. You know, you're praying. They're saying, well, why are you praying about this? Because I want God to give me wisdom. Or why you're trusting God and all of that. Yes, I am, but I'm also using some wisdom. So they said, don't get weary in well doing. In other words, don't get weary in doing what's right, doing the right thing. And the word weary means don't get slammed, don't go into slack, don't go into depression, all that, by doing what's right. He said, because if you do that, he says, you'll reap a harvest if you don't faint. And so that's applicable to the day. If I don't faint, if I don't fall under, if I don't fall out, if I don't trip out, then I'm going to get a harvest. So God promises to them in Galatians, and that same promises is applicable for today. God wants you to understand. Don't faint. We need somebody that can stand up. We need somebody that won't faint to help give us direction. And then it's amazing what's going on in our country. We hear a lot of very negative things in that, but there's a lot of people who will even listen today who are holding on, who are standing on, who are not fainting, who are not twisting. Yeah, they're wise. They're using wisdom, but they're not going to faint. And let me just say this about wisdom. What people are calling wisdom many times is fear hidden behind it. Because if I'm wise, I'm trusting God. But they'll say, well, I'm being wise. I'm staying in. But you get hungry and see what happens, And they think to do that. We find an emergency where you have to go. So it's really was fear behind wisdom. Wisdom tells you this is what you do. But understanding tells you, when do I do it? How do I do it? What it is that I do. So the scripture says, get wisdom, but with all you're getting, get some understanding. So that's what I'm trying to answer your question. Did that make sense to you? Because
Oh, most definitely. And I appreciate you for going into that.
So I'm back to the word. Most of the books that I read are not just biblical books and people doing scripture. I read what people are saying. I keep an ear on the earth, on the planet. People who make you think about some things and not think about things. I read something, I can't remember the gentleman's name now, but one of the things he's talked about was we're always trying to prove that we're right. But he says a true person who's really searching for truth also tries to find out if they're wrong. He said, and that allows you to look at the entire picture, because we do have a bias. We do, even with our words. So that's kind of like where I am. I'm in the scripture. I'm listening on the earth right now. I'm not really reading a lot of things like I generally do. You know, I read there were some books that I did read, and I'm always trying to read and listen and reading articles, because most of the truth and understanding is not necessarily coming from our quote Christian writers. It's not coming from other people who understand what's going on, and God's given them insight as well.
In this time we're dealing with now with COVID-19, and people are losing loved ones, and you lost the love of your life, what would you suggest? What advice could you give someone who maybe lost someone near and dear during this time to help them deal with the grief?
Well, dealing with grief is extremely difficult because it's emotional, it's heartfelt. Nevertheless, we need to train up our hearts by the word of God. We need to fortify our hearts, our emotions, our feelings with the word of God, because these things are going to transpire in our lifetime.
Yes, sir.
People are going to come and people are going to go. And I don't want to sound unsensitive, because every life is important to God.
That's right.
So all lives, I mean, my heart swells, tears come up in my eyes when I see some of the things that's going on, because my heart goes out, and I pray for God to comfort them, to strengthen them, to encourage them, to help them see that they can go beyond this moment, because God, you already seen this moment. We just didn't see it. And because you've seen it, you had to see us getting through this. So lead us in getting through this so we can get to the other side of it. So I would tell people, man, now is not the time to let your faith fail you. Now is the time to hold on your faith more than you ever had. Because if we're walking through the unknown now, there's much more of the unknown coming. And we need to be prepared, trusting in him, having faith in him. Not in ourselves, but in him and what he said. Because he's not a man that he will lie. He's going to do what he said he's going to do. And if we trust him, we're going to get to the other side, bro.
My parents, 1977. So I didn't, I didn't have a choice. They made decisions for the household, and bottom line was, if they said we were going to do it, we were going to do it. We went to church. I didn't mind going to church at that point because he was getting snacks. You might remember that.
Right.
When we had Bible study, we wrapped it up with like some cookies and some donuts and stuff like that. So that was cool. But that was me being obedient as a child. You know what I mean? It just didn't ask no questions. That was from the age of 9, I think, when we met, all the way up until I joined the Marine Corps and rode out, man. And I think I left in 85, 86. And then I went on my first overseas tour in, I remember, December of 89. And that when I went on a faith journey for myself. That's when I accepted Christ for myself, and not just under the guise of my parental guidance, So I spent, and that's significant, and I'll share why, because I spent that full year overseas. At that point in time in the Marine Corps, if you went overseas, the story goes like you either going to become a Christian, which, I was already a Christian,
right?
But now I'm actually living it. You're either going to be a physical fitness nut, which I was already a physical fitness nut. We was running all the time, lifting weights and all that other stuff. Or you were gonna become a drunk. And you know, I don't drink. So you know, the first two locked, you know what I mean? And I spent that full year in a place called Iwakuni, Japan. If anybody's ever been out there, shout out to Iwakuni. It was beautiful. Never seen anything like it. That was the first time as a first time I'd ever been out of the country. And it was, you know, in the Marine Corps. Then came back home, and it was this November of 1989 when I came back. And that's when I found out my mom was sick. Yeah. So my mom was sick, and we went through trials and tribulations and all this and that. And she eventually transitioned, went home to be with her father. And so at this point, I'm mad because you know, spent this whole year over there studying my word. I'm worshiping, I'm praising. You know, I was doing all the right things. And then I come back home, and boom, 6 months later, my mom passes away. So after that, didn't want to hear nothing about God. Didn't want to hear nothing about Christ. As a matter of fact, he walked up to me and tried to witness to me. We got into a fight. I was starting fights about stuff like that. You know? But now that I'm older, you know, I realized that that year that I spent overseas, I mean, God always lines everything up. It was permanent. You know what I mean? It was like money in the bank. You know, you can only drift so far. So while my parents introduced me to Christ at 77, started the faith journey, that faith journey wasn't real. You know, that was a covering. And then in 1989 and 90, 1989, when I started doing it for myself, it became real.
Okay.
So the word that we studied, everything that we did, all of it basically came to fruition for that one moment in my life, which I thought was the worst time of my life. But it turned out to be where God showed himself strong. Because when my mom passed away, man, I was mad at the world. My mom telling me.
I feel you.
Yeah, I was mad at the world. So she passes, don't want to hear it. I go on to continue to do that. Man, when I say don't want to hear it, I don't want to hear anything about Christ. I don't want to hear anything about God. And I go on to continue to, you know, do things in the Marine Corps. I'm traveling the world. I got married. I'm on deployments. I'm on ships. I'm doing all kinds of stuff. And then I come back off of drill instructor duty, which was probably one of the funnest duties I had. And I always been a man of my word. Some dude came up to me and said, "Hey man, I know you don't want to hear this, but I keep hearing God say, let me invite you to Bible study. That I should invite you to Bible study." This was like 98.
Okay.
And, so I told the dude, I remember saying it directly, you know, looking him in the eyes. I said, "Man, if you just leave me alone and shut up, man, I'll show up at Bible study." You know, because he was like, yeah, he was relentless, man. He was every day, you know. And so we're 8 years past my mother's death now. You know, it's 1990, it's 1998. So I went that night, man, and changed my whole life. You know, a lot of things, a lot of people don't know this, but at that point in time, my wife and I, we weren't together. I was living in North Carolina by myself. She was living up here. We were on the verge of splitting.
Right.
And I remember I went to the altar and I told God, I said, "All right, you want to prove to me you're real, you give me my family back, and I'll serve you for the rest of my life." And that's his history. Like a day or two later, she called me. She said, "Hey, we're coming to live in North Carolina." And been on that path ever since, man.
And you know, Tony, it's so key what you said about that journey for yourself, because so many times as kids we're forced to go.
Yeah.
We get out to college or the world, then you really experience God for yourself. It's almost like basic training. They take you to boot camp, teach you everything you need to know, and then they send you to a duty station. And now you have to figure out what was real and what was fluff during basic training. So I think that's key.
That's interesting that you say that, because you know, you can liken that to boot camp, like you just said, joining the military. You can liken it to the police academy, because you know, one of the first things they tell you when you come out of the police academy, you meet your first partner. What does he say? "Yo, Rook, I know you learned all this stuff. I know you learned how we do it in the academy. Let me show you how we do it out here." You know?
do some training day on them, huh?
Yeah, with Denzel and everything. But it's so true. And like, you know, and there are a lot of parents that will say, you know, because I was one of them in the beginning. I ain't gonna overload my kids with church. I ain't gonna make them go to church all the time, this and the other. But the Bible is clear. God is clear when he writes and says, train up a child in the way that it should go.
That's right.
He will never depart from it. And it doesn't mean that he will never stray. He or she will never step out. You know what I'm saying?
God says, not now. He has something better waiting for you. Have you experienced a time where maybe you felt like it was something you really wanted and it didn't come to pass, but then when God made his move, it was just what you needed and wanted?
You know, this journey has revealed a lot of that to me. Leaving my home without knowing any stable job was going to be there for me, or knowing anybody to support me during that time, and having my 2 little girls with me and my wife to support, and as being just a man and a husband, it was a lot of weight and a lot of pressure for me. So yes, I wanted to want the best for my family, but in submitting to God, I just know that he had the best for me. So leaving home, there was only a limited amount of things I could carry, including furniture, my bedroom set, and so forth. And I'm just gonna be very transparent right here, because I think in transparency, I think people can then relate to the situation, understand that whatever they're going through, I overcame it, so God will also overcome their situations as well. So recently, it's been a year since I really have had a mattress. I've been sleeping on airbeds, and the airbeds just seem to pop. You know, it's not meant to be slept on like for every single day.
Right.
You know, so my wife and I have been sleeping on a sofa. So in doing that, you know, our body started to ache and hurt.
Right, I'm sure.
Recently, someone gifted me some funds to buy a mattress. So it's been almost 7 months, 8 months or so without a mattress. And having a mattress now has made me have this more profound appreciation of the little things, right? That we sometimes take for granted. And I'm so grateful for just the little things that God has blessed us. We say it, but we don't truly always mean it. And it's not until we experience these little things that we see, wow, God got us. God is taking care of us. And we are blessed. We are blessed in so many little ways. So that's one scenario, and I got so many different.
How was that first night sleeping on that mattress?
Oh my goodness. It was hard to get up. It was wonderful. We were excited to jump up on the mattress, and we just praise God. And even till today, I still like just glorify God. Like, thank you for that mattress, God. Thank you for the mattress. Thank you for coming at a time as such, you know. So I just give him glory and honor in that.
So Conversations with Brent, we tried to ask real questions. I try to think of things people think. So my next question is, some people would say, man, you are crazy. You left home, came to a place you didn't know, you didn't have any stability, you slept on the air mattress. Are you sure that was God that told you to do that? What would you say if somebody asked you that?
Well, I would say God responds differently to everyone, but in my scenario, in my situation, in this situation, I know it's God. He's proven himself true over and over. You know, I believe in your walk, you have to be really true with God. You have to be really honest and transparent, and talk to him and make this relationship, because when things are, it comes to a point where you just don't know where your resources are coming. So I had my in my closet moments, so to speak, you know, and just kind of conversating with God, and I made my request known, and he came through each and every time. He made me encounter some individuals that were in the public eye, very popular, very famous, and was able to support me with just wisdom, and just build my network. So God has done a tremendous amount of work in just this 1 year that has confirmed that he is with me, for sure.
because you have always been that example. Like I said, you have been an example of consistency from the very first day we met. Now, I knew Shanice from high school, but never knew. And so to be able to meet you and see the love, the walk that you all have, and for all you people listening, you talking about somebody who raised 3 amazing, wonderful young ladies. This man and wife have done an amazing job.
Thank you.
It's not to say anything negative about it, but if you would look at where they started at, you would expect these girls to be statistics. You would expect them to have multiple babies with multiple daddies and all that. And we're not knocking anybody that does that, but I'm just saying, when you look at an environment that sometimes people start out in, you don't see anything more for them. And all your daughters have degrees and advanced degrees. And what helped you and your wife in the midst of your circumstances in that environment to cause your daughters to be such amazing women?
Well, be honest, Brent, when Shanice and I started this adventure 32 years ago, we decided in the beginning, we was gonna take the good and the bad from both sides, from her parents, my parents, and then we was gonna take the good, not the bad. We ain't gonna bring in the fight and the arguing, all this craziness. We're gonna bring in the good, and then we're gonna take what God had put in us for good, that they didn't have time to have nothing, say, real negative that they had to focus on or deal with at home or whatever our issues was, Shanice and I, as far as keeping the household or whatever. That was our thing. I was not on the kids. A lot of them, they ain't even know about. You understand? And stuff. So, but we decided in the beginning that we was going to have a peaceful, safe, loving, and actually from our growing up, to be honest, to show them how family is really supposed to operate.
Okay.
So
with that being said, because it's called Men of Faith, when was the time that you had to rely on your faith to see you through?
Boy, Brent, it has been so many occasions, but I give you one example of the old, because I'm a veteran. I served in field artillery for years, but one year, man, we was out for a 2-week maneuver, right?
Okay.
And I'm driving this ammo carrier because we was carrying like 200-pound Projos, right? So it was time to get out of the field. We had fired up all the Projos, all the rounds, right? And so on the way back in every year, you know, it was like a race to the finish, you know, a race to get out of those woods and get back to civilization, right? Man, this one year, I pulled the lever because it was like a lever. It wasn't no steering wheel. It was a lever. Yeah, you left, you right, you left, you right. And I pulled the right side of that lever to make a right turn, and that baby locked on me, man.
Ooh.
And it kept rolling, just turning right. And before I knew it, man, I had went Holy Ghost. I'm like, in the name of Jesus, I know this ain't my end. Man, we got right on the edge of the cliff with the front quarter of the 548. We teetering back and forth and stuff. And I said, okay, God, what should I do? What should I do? And he said, first, calm down and put your heart back in your chest. And then he said, secondly, keep the brake on and just put it in reverse. Don't turn, don't, just back up.
Right.
And man, it saved me and at least 3 other people's lives. Because
Wow.
we went over the cliff.
Mm.
And it was a straight shot down. And we wasn't in nothing but a metal vehicle. You know,
Okay.
so I mean, we didn't have no cushions, or we didn't have no airbags or nothing.
Right.
So from that point on, man, and I was a young guy then, you know,
Right.
and I ain't gonna lie, I love Jesus, but you know, I had a few choice words that I can't.
I know that's right.
But I will be honest now, I was scared to death. But God allowed me to calm myself down and keep the other people calm,
Right.
so that we can get out of there safe.
I remember a story not too long ago. We were having a conversation, like we always do, and you talked about a time where your dad did something that really touched you spiritually. You remember what that was?
What was it?
When he went to the altar with you?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
You wanted to share that a little bit, or?
Yeah, so I was actually, during this time, I was feeling super down.
Okay.
Just not, you know, like when you're in a phase in your life and you just feel like I've done everything that I can, or maybe you haven't, you just can't really get up in the mornings, like
Right.
You're not really feeling like yourself. So we went to church and the pastor was really just speaking to me. Like I knew, yes, I'm like, it was one of those sermons where you were like, is he talking to me? Like I really thought he was talking to me.
Right.
And he was just like, you know, if you've ever felt broken, like if you're feeling broken right now, whatever, stand up, go, like come to the altar. And I've always wanted to go since I was a little girl,
Right.
but I was always really scared. But I mean, it was really God that came through me that day. I just stood up and then I just began walking down. I asked him, I was like, can you come down with me? And he came down with me. So yeah, it was really good. But I really noticed after that experience that just as bad as I needed it, he needed it as well.
Oh, definitely.
So I feel like that definitely really, I don't know, it proved me that I'm already equipped with everything in me to be bold, to succeed, to step out in the world. So yeah, I felt really good. Like that was like one of the best days for me. Like it was awesome.
And I think sometimes we as men underestimate the importance and the value we play in our daughters' lives, but also the value you bring to our lives. When was a time where God was like, outside of the potential move, you had to really rely on your faith, and what was keeping you going at that time?
I'm gonna try to make a long story short.
Okay.
This was, as my wife would tell you, sometimes I can be very stubborn, and so God is faithful. He's patient. He said, "I'll wait on you. I'll wait on you." So I got married in 2005. In 2007, 2008, I got diagnosed with lymphoma.
Okay.
And it was a gut punch because I was a young man still. I'm like, I'm still vibrant. I'm still, you know, out here doing stuff. Actually, it was probably 2009, sorry. And I'm like, you know, I just had my daughter. And so it was a gut punch. And things happened through that, you know, that made me trust in God. You know, I had to do the chemo. But one of the things that happened was they asked me, I got to the end of chemo, it was in remission, you know, didn't lose hair. You know, I was okay, you know, still had the chemo sick, would get sick and everything, but having a wife there was something that was heaven sent. I will say that because I don't think I could have did it on my own. And I think God knows who to send, when to send, and how to send them, you know.
That's right.
So I had my wife there, and she, you know, was with me there, lockstep and key, was at every doctor's appointment, was at every chemo treatment. And so I was there. And by the time we got to the end, they asked us, they said, well, the last thing you probably need to do is you need to do radiation. And me and the wife talked, and I said, I really don't want to do any radiation. I said, that's just a whole bunch of poison that they put in. I said, I really don't want to do it. And my wife was like, well, if you don't want to do it, then I got your back and we together on this, then let's not do it. So we didn't do it. Everything was good for about 4 years. Now that was a tough decision to make because
I'm sure.
I'd always sat back and, like, well, what if you make the wrong decision? That's a pretty hefty decision that you got to make. So I felt like God was saying, don't do it. And I felt peace about it. Well, 4 years later, I got a big old lump on my neck and I knew what it was. And what was tough was I didn't have health insurance, and I think my wife, she didn't have health insurance either. We both weren't working. No, I was working. I just didn't have health insurance, so she wasn't working. And so I always told her, she kept asking me. Well, I didn't say a word about it because I'm like, I don't know what to do about this. First of all, my faith was shaken because I felt like I had made a good decision 4 years ago, but to see it come back and not just come back like, a little mouse coming back. It came back like a roaring lion, so it was there on my neck. You couldn't, I had to wear my collar up like this so people couldn't see it. You don't want people asking you questions because as of right now, I ain't made a decision about what's going on yet. I ain't even been to the doctor yet. So, and even the wife, I tried to keep it from her because I'm like, until I can figure out what's going on and what we gonna do, ain't no sense in bringing her in here in the worry. Now she would tell you that's the dumbest thing that you could ever do, and I probably agree with her on that now because two is always better than one.
Right.
So finally, she saw it one day. We was at church. She saw it one day, and so we sat and we talked about it. But God is good because before we went to the doctor and everything, He had blessed her with a job, and He had blessed her with a job at Cincinnati Public Schools. And that was such a blessing, and I'm gonna get to it in a minute, but that was such a blessing, didn't even know why. So I go to the doctor, they re-examine, they say, well, yeah, it's back, so let's start the chemo. And they said, this time probably what you're gonna end up having to do is you're gonna have to do chemo, and then you're gonna have to get a bone marrow transplant. And I was like, well, hold on, what's that? They said, they ran it down. They said, basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna destroy your white blood cells till they're not there anymore. And you're gonna have to be in the hospital for a while. And then we're gonna bring it back. We're gonna give you new white blood cells, and hopefully it'll fix what's going on the inside of you. So I said, all right. So I did chemo for about 8 months, and they went me through all the donors and everything. And once again, God is faithful through this whole circumstances because I didn't have to use somebody else's bone marrow. I was able to use my own.
Okay.
Although my younger sister was a match, I didn't have to use it. So, time goes on, I get the chemo, and then it's time to go in the hospital. And this was probably one of the hardest things I ever had to do. Because while I was in the hospital, not only, they're going to give me a heavy dose of chemo that's just going to wipe me out for, I couldn't do anything. But I couldn't see my family. That was probably the toughest thing. That when I went to the hospital, that was tough. I was like, man, I can't see my kid. I can see my wife. I said, but I can't see my kids. It's almost like being in jail, only they treat you a little better. You know what I mean?
A little better, just a little bit.
Yeah, they bring you food and stuff, but that was tough. That was something that I felt like, all right, God, I'm sitting in the hospital. I'm sick as a dog. There's chemo going through me. And I'm like, God, whatever I got to do to not go through this anymore, I'm willing to do it. And the funny thing that kept coming up, and Pastor Blue and Pastor Grace would come and see me, and they would always talk about, forgiveness this and forgiveness that. And I'm like, listen, I done forgive all the people I need to forgive. I'm running out of forgiveness words, but you know what? Right. One night I was just so sick. I couldn't do anything. All I did was just lay there and just keep repeating over and over again the people that I needed to forgive. And once I got to the end, I'd repeat them all over again too. Because that was all I could do. Because I said, God, if that's what you want me to do, to not have to go through this again, this is horrible. Okay. So whatever I have to do to not go through this again, I'm gonna do it. So if you need me to forgive and really forgive and keep saying I forgive them until it's actually true, then I'll do it. I was in the hospital, Brent, for 20 days. And I was supposed to be in there for like a month and a half. And they said when day 20 came around, day 19 came around, they said, well, your signs are looking good. Everything is going good. They said, we might be able to let you out of here by tomorrow. And the one lady said, I had this breathing thing. She said, but if you don't do this breathing thing, it ain't gonna help, and you ain't gonna be able to get out of here. So all that whole night, I'm like, I'm trying to get out of here, you know?
Right.
So I got out, and they had me on quarantine for 30 days, and then after that, they asked me. They said, so this question came up again, Brent. They said, we need you to do radiation. I said, I'll do it. This time I'll do it, all right? So I went through the radiation and everything, and after I got done with radiation, I went and took a PET scan. Got done with the PET scan, they called me back, and this was probably one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever heard. They said, well, John, you still got a couple spots on your lymph nodes. I said, okay. I said, all that, and it's still here, huh? So they said, well, here's what you're gonna have to do. They said, we're gonna take you back through chemo again, and we probably gonna have to do another bone marrow transplant. I said, I said, God.
Extremely painful.
It was. I said, the good thing was they don't go through the bone anymore. They can extract your white blood cells through, it's almost like dialysis.
Okay.
They don't have to take it out of your bone anymore, but it's still painful. But they said, you have to go through chemo and you'll have to go through a bone marrow transplant. And I said, all right. I said, we're gonna go through this chemo and then we'll talk about what we do next. So I did another 9 months of chemo, and by the 9th month came around, I noticed, I was telling the doctor, I said, man, my fingers are starting to tingle, my legs are starting to tingle, and I feel a little weak.
Right.
He was like, I said, it could be, I slept wrong or something like that, because it seemed like it just happened overnight. And he was like, yeah, he said, maybe you did sleep wrong. I said, I'm thinking about going to see a chiropractor. He said, all right, go ahead, go see a chiropractor. So I went and saw a chiropractor for about 2 months and realized nothing changed, and it was getting worse. So finally, I told him, this was probably September of 2015. I said, man, it's getting worse. And he said, well, neuropathy is a side effect of the chemo drug. And I said, all right, what's neuropathy? He said, that's when, your nerves start to go, your nerves get bad. They start to shut down on you. You start to lose weight and lose muscle control and everything because your nerves aren't functioning like they should. And I said, well, sound like to me, I got 2 decisions to make. I said, and by that time, I was having to be driven to the doctor because I couldn't hardly walk. I couldn't hardly stand. I couldn't hold a fork to feed myself. That's how weak I was. I went from, I was probably close to 200 pounds before everything started. Some of that was fat. Some of that, I was trying to keep working out and whatnot.
Right.
But I was down to 130 pounds by the time I finally came in the doctor's office one day and said, you know what, we're gonna have to stop this treatment. I said, because if this chemo don't kill me, this neuropathy gonna kill me. I said, so we're gonna have to stop. We just gotta stop. And the doctor told me, he said, well, if we stop, that means it could always come, because it was in remission. He said, if we stop, it could always come rushing back and it could be worse than it was. I said, I understand. I said, but if I don't stop, this I'm not gonna make it through this neuropathy.
Right.
So I got a decision to make here, and I think we're gonna have to stop this chemo. So I stopped the chemo, but thank God, because God always has a ram in the bush, right?
Yes,
All
he
the
does.
time. Well, Pastor Blue and Pastor Grace had connected me with this naturopathic doctor up in Dayton that I was going to see. And I was going to see her while I was taking the chemo treatments and everything. And she had given me all these supplements and, had me on a certain diet and had me doing all sorts of stuff that I would, on a normal day I would never do. Wouldn't even cross my mind to do, But I believe the reason why the cancer went away so fast and they couldn't even see traces of it when they went to my last PET scan was because in combination with the chemo, I was also doing the things that she had me doing. And that again, I mean, that in me took a lot of faith, because after coming back and roaring back, my faith was really shook to see, all right, God, can you really cure me of this thing?
Right.
And that was in 2015. And in 2020, I have not had any trace of cancer whatsoever.
I know what I'm doing. And then I ended up going to the Olympics and bobsled, so hey.
So one thing you said is your parents allowed you to be a kid. And I think sometimes parents put so much pressure on their kids
Yeah.
to be the next Jordan, the next LeBron or whatever, and don't let them be kids.
Yeah.
So I commend your parents for allowing you just to be a kid and let you kind of find your path.
Yeah,
So.
and then it became my choice and something I wanted for myself, and it made it more fulfilling and made me want to stick with it when it got hard, because it's always going to get hard. But when it was something I wanted to do for me, it was a deeper connection. And so like I wanted to be a part of it no matter what challenges came up. I wanted to earn my seat at the table because I come from a very athletic family. My father was a swimmer. My mother ran track.
Oh, wow.
My brother played in the NFL for 8 years, 7 with the Minnesota Vikings, and both my uncle and cousin both played Major League Baseball. So like any sport, I'm clever, right? And so I just wanted to scoot my seat up to the table.
So, hey,
and so,
had to find your place.
Yeah.
So you talked about difficulties and challenges. What led you to transition from track and field to bobsled? Was it an injury? Was it just timing? Was it just divine intervention?
I think it was timing. After college, I went on to compete a little post-collegiate.
Okay.
But it wasn't the exact lane I wanted to be in. I'm like 5'10", and I was too small to really just be a full-time shot put thrower, which was what I did in college. But then I also wasn't fast enough to just be a sprinter on a professional level. And so I was kind of in this middle gray area, and a lot of the coaches that wanted to work with me on a professional level wanted me to just like gain all this weight to become a shot put thrower or what they thought I could do, and it just didn't feel like me.
Right.
And so as part of my undergrad degree, I had to complete a semester of internship, and I did it. I did my undergrad in sport management.
Okay.
And so I worked at a sports performance gym, EFT Sports Performance in Highland Park, Illinois, and that's where everything kind of came together. My brother trained there in the off season with all his NFL friends.
Okay.
And so that's how I found out about the gym. And then I started working there. I got hired during my internship, started working there, and I loved it. I was helping so many different people accomplish their goals, whether they're corporate clients, they have weight loss goals, they're collegiate athletes trying to make it combine training, preparing high school athletes for college. I just worked with them all, and it was very fulfilling, but it was something missing for me. Like, I was like, dang, I'm giving all this to everyone else, but like, what about me?
Right.
And so that's when the Olympics, like my Olympic dreams kind of came back into play, and I was like, I got to do something about it. And in 2012 was when I started my Olympic journey. And I started training at EFT. It was me and all the football guys. Like, I was the only girl going pound for pound with them, but it was dope because it kept me on my toes, and their dynamic was, it was what I needed for the sport of bobsled, because you got to be able to be a competitor and a teammate like that. As 1 minute you're competing against each other, next you got to help the other person move the sled or anything that needs to take place from a teammate perspective. And so what I admired about training with all those guys and my brother was the way they went so hard every Sunday or Thursday night, but then they were able to like push each other and kind of have that lightheartedness around it. And so just that dynamic is similar to like what the sport of bobsled was. And so it was cool for me to learn that going into the sport, because everything about the sport was new for me, but I went in wanting to be an Olympic gold medalist, to be honest.
So a second ago you mentioned Cool Runnings, which we know is about the Jamaican bobsled team. Most African Americans know nothing about bobsledding. Give us some kind of what bobsledding is. You mentioned track and field, football, we got you. You talk about bobsled and we okay, what they talking about?
Exactly. It's so funny, even with bobsledding, sometimes when people hear that, they ask me where my dogs are. Where do I keep my dogs? And I'm like, my what? And then I realized what they was talking about, like sled dog or whatever it's called, dog sledding or whatever. But bobsled is a Winter Olympic sport where you race down about a mile-long track full of a bunch of twists and turns. And my job is the brakeman, so I'm the engine to the sled. I get it going from 0 to 100 at the start of the race, and then I hop in after the driver, and she does all of the real work down the track, like steering. I think
how much real work is it? It's a track. You getting it going. Man. Wait a minute, to me, your position seems the hardest, because you got to push the sled and her and then jump in.
Right. She's pushing too, though. She's pushing on the side, but I bring a lot to the table because my momentum and velocity can really give her the boost she needs. But like navigating that track at speeds of 80 miles an hour or faster, and when we're going through these twists and turns, we're battling gravity, so we're pulling 4 or 5 G's. Astronauts, when they go into outer space, they pull about 3 G's. So like we're even more than that. So that's pressure just pushing you down in the sled. So for them to be navigating, and they use D-rings, so it's a steering mechanism. So like if you pull the right one, it's like 2-wheel drive. The runner's in the front, the blades will go to the right. If you pull the left, it goes to the left. So literally they're steering down the track like this, trying to make minor adjustments to be as efficient as possible. So their job is way.
So it's more to it than you just running, jumping in the sled. Because when you look at bobsled, you like, man, that look fun going down the hill, going through the little banks and stuff.
It looks fun, but man, it is brutal. Like that, my first time down the ice, I was like, why would this ever be a sport? Like I didn't understand how somebody wanted to do that. And like, it's just very loud, it's fast. I'm not in control, which is something
that's
I'm not
hard
used
for a lot of
us.
us.
Come on. And then I'm supposed to jump in and just expect someone I don't even know like that to get me down safely. Like that was hard, as well as not being in control of like the outcome. So like I can only do so much. So it's a lot that goes into the sport and makes it very dynamic. But if it was just to go down the track, I don't even like roller coasters, so I'm not that adventurous. But I am athletic, I am competitive, and when the adrenaline gets going, I get in that zone.
I know that. I've seen you, and you don't do it for this reason, but I've seen you buy Christmas gifts for kids whose parents couldn't do it. I've seen you help people get their cars fixed who didn't have the money to do it, and you did it. Where does that come from? Who instilled that in you?
Dad, that's deep, man. Look, I ain't gonna cry, man. I told you this. I ain't gonna cry. You know what I'm saying? This ain't supposed to be this type of thing now. But it came from my grandfather and my mother. My grandfather had the heart of a servant.
Okay.
But he stood for everything. And he instilled values in all of us. I'm an only child. But I grew up with my cousins, and one of my uncles. And my father wasn't there.
Right.
So my uncles, which are like my cousins, became my uncles. And my older cousins became my older brothers. And they all just put stuff into me.
Right.
And they showed me how to live and blessed me with certain things. And my grandfather always said, never be afraid to learn. You can learn from a baby. You know what I mean? If you're willing to open your ears and listen to what they're saying and learn from them. But your heart, you're supposed to give to people, because all we have is each other.
That's right.
And if somebody is in need for something, you're supposed to help them. It's a God-given thing. By you helping somebody, you're not looking for something in return. Because if I have the access, I'm accessible, and I have the right people and I have the right situation, and I can help you to get to that next chapter in your life, and you don't have to struggle like we've struggled. That's the whole point. That's what the whole movement, you know what I mean, of the civil rights were.
Right.
To try and put our people in a better place. And that's what my family and my grandfather stood for.
Yeah, because one of my favorite sayings is, you showed me a self-made man, I'll show you a man that didn't make much.
Yeah.
We all need somebody or multiple people to help mold us to who we are. Man, those were some amazing clips. I hope you enjoyed them as much as I did. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Go to BK3Mill at Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and leave some comments and let me know your favorite moments. See you soon. Next 10 episodes coming soon.